Hi, Gordon. I'm not starting my video yet because I'm trying to get myself in order.
Right, I completely understand that.
Thank you.
If I'm in my office in the city, which I am, and we have these meetings at this time, the sun sets behind me over the Hudson River. So I
Oh,
feel,
how nice.
but there's this like bright light coming in from here. So I don't,
So we don't get to see it then.
but I'm kind of over to the side. So otherwise I'd be sort of, I don't know.
Yeah. Wonderful that you have that view.
Thanks, it's nice. You know, I used to watch the cruise ships go back and forth, but there are a few of them now.
Yeah, I can imagine. Let's see.
Let me just step out for 2 seconds and let the people in my office know that I'm going to be doing this and say goodnight to them.
Okay,
I
great.
knocked off my license again. Okay, it's just for Vermont. I am back.
Great.
Hey, Jim.
Sorry?
Jim has joined us.
Good. Hi, Jim.
So there were 3 commission members who were on now.
Great.
I think it's remarkable that I finally learned with ease how to start this meeting.
Congratulations.
We're very grateful to you, Gordon.
Well, I'm nervous every time I do it, but I did it.
I know.
And luckily, John was waiting from the Historical Society, so I was able to know that I did it properly.
Great.
I'm lost as well. Some reason I have some type of scheduling thing in front here. The only one I have a picture of is Jim. It's nice to see you, Jim.
Well, good to see you.
Click something called Gallery View and see if that helps. Kind of go to the upper right corner where it says View. If you raise your mouse up to there, and there should be a grid of like 9 squares.
Connections, would that be connections?
No.
No. Somehow, some way I got chat with bottom.
Not down at the bottom.
I have nothing at the top. Stars, I have stars at the top. Something with a that says profile on it. This will be fine.
Hey, George. So we're still waiting for some more commissioners to come online.
Yeah, so we still have a couple of minutes.
Here's Susan.
Oh, good. So that means we now have a quorum of 4, which is great.
Hi, everybody.
Susan,
Hello.
Hey, Susan.
Hi. Gordon, I found out that you live right near where I grew up, which is just up the hill from you, right across the Morning Glory down that shell driveway. The house you live right at the corner of Railroad and Holbrook, right?
Oh, Brooklyn Railroad, yeah. So if you
So-
go up Holbrook towards town,
Yeah.
down that
So-
hill down there to the right.
No, it's not the hill. So if you're at the Morning Glory at the top of the hill,
Yes.
the shell driveway, it's like the house next to you across the street on Railroad Avenue. And then the one just beyond that is the house I grew up in. So I grew up in your hood. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, you grew up in the Baker house on that little, across the street from Turn of the Lane? Is that where it is?
Yes, that was where I grew up. That was our house.
So when I was much, much younger in the 1960s, my best friend from the Bank Street School in New York was named Tom Hefner.
Oh my
And
God, I know Tommy Hebner. So he lived in the Turn of the Lane that summer
he
too.
rented Turn of the Lane.
Yes.
And I used to play in your driveway, and I so admired your parents' white LTD Ford with the black interior. I still remember it to this day.
That was a big behemoth, if I recall. We bombed around town in some big cars in those days, man. It was kind of
Big
scary
white
when you
car
think about
with
it.
black interior. I thought it was so handsome. I remember.
That's hilarious.
And I was just talking to Krista the other day, and I guess her parents live in that house now.
Who
Part of
does?
the whole Ketchum clan.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I don't remember the name of the people who bought it from us. We were, as kids, we were totally traumatized that they sold the house. So
You and I
we
probably
hate
played
everything they've
together.
done to it, but it looks beautiful. They did a
It
great
does, it
job
looks
with it.
beautiful. You and I probably played together as kids with Tommy Hebner.
We might have. Tommy was a little bit younger than me. He was more my brother's age, so I might have ignored him. But
Is that right? Yeah.
when I was that age, but I do remember. Yeah, they were over all the time. He was a sweet kid.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he was nice.
He was
Please
up-
tell him I say hello if you talk to him.
I do sometimes. He lives up in Framingham now.
Oh my, that's hilarious.
So we have a quorum now.
We do have a quorum and it's 5:01, so I think we should go ahead and start. And I'd like to welcome everyone who's joined us tonight and let you know that as we make decisions about proposals, we're referring to the Secretary of Interior Standards for Rehabilitation. And we will be starting with 131 Rockwell Ave. We'd like to request that everyone mute themselves except the person who's presenting for 131 Rockwell Ave. We're assuming that's Kyle Keegan. And otherwise, commissioners will remain unmuted so that we can discuss the property, and other presenters, please mute yourselves.
I am going to share my screen now so that we can look at each proposal. So just give me a moment. I'm getting to it. Sorry, I was in a rush here, guys.
This is for 131 Rockwell. So I see that PDF on the right-hand side.
So here's
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So here comes the PDF for 131 Rockwell.
Hooray.
Now, Kyle, you came before us at the last meeting and talked about wanting to put basically a metal shingle roof on this house. I personally have since, looked at the house and looked at some of the examples you've given us of metal shingle roofs. Here's the house. Here are the metal shingle roofs. And we've consulted with our preservation consultant about it. And I think that one of the things about our commission is that the date during which something was constructed would result in it being referred to us, whether or not the structure is actually historically significant, and whether or not the structure is prominent. So driving all the way back there down Rockwell, this is sort of way back off the road. And there are not a tremendous number of historical features at this house. And the preservationist guidance was that we have the leeway to approve a new material that may not have been available at the time of construction if in fact the house is not of great historical significance and is not prominent. So as I looked at this project and reviewed this house, I think under those guidances that are consistent with the National Trust for Historic Preservation, the federal standards that the Department of Interior passes, rights related specifically to historic structures. It's my opinion, based on that information, that approving the new material on this house would in fact not set a precedent for other projects, because this house is unique in that it doesn't have a great deal of historic significance and it's off the beaten path. And so I was sort of looking again at the materials, and I think that in this case, as an isolated case, I wouldn't have a problem personally approving that alternative roof material. I wonder if any of the other commissioners have an opinion.
I agree with that. Oh, sorry, Susan, go ahead.
Go ahead, Meryl.
All right, I agree with that assessment. I mean, in a way, this does set a precedent in that it's a house in a remote area that's not visible from the road, and it's not historically significant. And so it does give us leeway with deciding about the materials. I want to thank you, Kyle, for providing us extra materials and providing us the addresses of other houses to look at, and for sending us the roof material itself. But I agree with Gordon's assessment.
I do as well. And I think that the position of that building right on the dune, way off the road, certainly makes it not prominent. There are a lot of buildings around it that are of similar style that all have asphalt roofs. But I think the way that it looks from the pictures we saw seems like it's going to fit well regardless. What about hurricane? What is that? I know I shouldn't even ask this. It's just I'm interested in its strength in terms of over 110 mile an hour winds, because obviously that place gets just buffeted by the winds on the dunes.
Yeah, that's a big reason that we're out in that area quite a bit. Cape Cod in general is our roof is warranted up to 165 miles per hour. The shingles are locked into each other, nailed down, so they'll never have to replace this roof again. The house will fall apart before the roof.
Okay.
does. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments from the Historical Commission members?
May I just ask you why the house comes to the commission? Is it the date of its construction, or it's out of the historic district, I would think.
Yes, it's the date of its construction. All houses that are more than 75 years old come before us.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, and especially if the entire roof is going to be replaced, then that's a partial demolition, and that's why. Yeah.
So
I would agree with the reasoning. I also think that the roof is not a distinctive feature of the building design.
So I'm going to go ahead and make a motion unless there are any other comments. I'd like to make a motion to accept this proposal as presented, with the awareness that the house itself is not historically significant, and it is not within view of, it's not prominent, it's not within view.
And I'd just like to add something to that, saying that the federal standards published by the Department of Interior give us the leeway to make such a decision.
Great, thank you, Gordon. Would you like to second my motion?
I second that motion.
Shall we vote? I vote aye.
Aye.
Am I?
Aye.
And Mac, I saw you raise your hand as well?
Aye, sorry.
Great. Okay, thanks. Okay, thanks again, Kyle, for coming back to us, and congratulations.
Thank you very much. I hope to see you guys again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and our next item on the agenda is the Wellfleet Historical Society and Museum Building. And is it Eric Winslow who's here to present? Who is presenting for this building? Do we know?
It could be Eric. I'm just admitting Addison Winslow now. And John, who is the president of the board at the Historic Society, is on with us already.
Okay.
Addison is just joining. Hold on.
I'm John, and I've just unmuted myself.
Great. John, will you be presenting this project, or is someone else presenting?
Eric is the head of our building committee, so he'll be presenting.
Okay, great.
Eric, are you with us, Eric? Try to admit Eric.
He's been waiting. He just texted me. He's been waiting to be let into the meeting.
Yeah, I thought I just let him in, but for some reason. Huh.
Eric said, I'm going to log out and try to get back in to see if the host notices me. I told him.
I did. I noticed him and I admitted him, but it just spun and spun and spun.
Oh dear. Do you have,
Well-
and you definitely have Wi-Fi, Gordon? You must, if
Yeah,
we're
no,
on.
I'm connected to fiber optics in Manhattan.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's a good life.
yeah, right. Let me just hold on for 1 second and let me stop sharing my screen so I can see.
Okay.
It says Addison Winslow joining. I'm going to admit him again. It says
John,
join.
John, I don't know if you want us to see.
Oh, there we
it.
go.
Oh, good.
Okay.
If
Hold on.
possible, John, it would be great to see you if you could turn on your video down below on your screen.
Video. It's the one little camera one, huh?
And Eric, if you could turn yours on too, that would be great, and unmute
All
yourself.
this I come up with is the agenda when I put on my video.
Okay.
Blank screen.
Well, there's something on the screen that says stop video, and I don't know what it says when you.
Right next to the mute button.
Right next to the mute button, yeah.
And I don't see the mute button either.
So
You need to go all the way to the bottom of the screen.
Wait a
and then
second,
it
I see
becomes-
this. Here we go. This may actually work. All right,
There
you
you go.
are.
I
We
see
see
the
you.
top of my head.
Welcome.
Well, one handsome man.
Nice to
yes.
see you.
Right.
John, can you tell me your last name, just so I can
John.
put you in the notes?
John Connors, Connors.
Great, thanks.
So
Didn't know that, but I didn't.
So now that Eric is here and John is here, so the proposal before us is to construct an addition at the rear of the Historical Society building, which is on Main Street and is a very prominent building. I just am going to go through a series of kind of like materials that Eric has provided and John has provided. And then as I go through them, I'm going to give a brief introduction. So the first bit of information is that we do have Form Bs, which are the sort of historical record of the two of the structures. This structure here, which I'm sure is familiar to all of us, is the Payne Higgins House. Common name is the Captain Samuel Curtis House. And there has been significant research on it in terms of its history. Here's a broader picture of it, and we all might remember this extension here that was here. More details about it. And so this is another view of the historic record from 1973 of the property. Another portion of the Historical Society Museum is this, which I'm sure we're also all familiar with, also on Main Street. It was originally the Wellfleet Library, or the Payne Warren Higgins store. And here, as we look back, is a clear shot of it. Again, something very familiar. A couple of other pictures, not so great. And then we have here the proposal for the work, which largely takes place in the rear of the building. And I am going to scroll through here to show that here is the existing condition at the rear of the building. I'm sorry, the front of the building. This is what had been the store or the library, and this is the larger house. And here's a connecting link. Please note the location of this ridge line that connects the two structures. And here we have the proposal to construct something at the rear of the property. And this again is the front view, this being the old library portion, this being the larger house, this being the ridge. And here you see ghosted in where the extension is going at the rear, the ridge of which rises above this cross connection and will be visible by 6 feet from the front elevation. Here we have that drawn in just to be completely clear.
Mm-hmm.
And now this is the existing rear elevation here. This is the back of what had been the library store. This is the large portion of the building. This is that cross gable. And here we show the extension at the rear, which is quite lovely from the rear, with a nice colonnade and a dormer. And here you see a photograph of that where the addition is going to go here. Again, with a ridge here rises approximately 6 feet above this cross gable. Sort of shows us the same thing, the side view. So what I want to say about this, first of all, thank you for the clear presentation of your application, Eric. It makes my job a lot easier when I can just kind of slide through and look at things. Now, I believe that what the Historical Society is hoping to achieve with this extension is to make the building accessible. And that means providing bathrooms that comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act, corridor widths that apply with the Americans with Disabilities Act, and an elevator that complies with the Americans with Disabilities Act, and related vestibule in front of the elevator that's big enough, for example, for a wheelchair to turn around comfortably. As a result of that, and everything that has to go into this structure, again, here's where it's going. This width from here to here is really determined by what has to fit inside it. My first thought was if they just made it narrower, then this ridge would not rise above the cross gable. However, because of the requirements of the Americans with Disabilities Act, they've already gone through the process of narrowing this addition as small as they possibly can. And originally, in their first proposal, the ridge here rose 10 feet above the cross ridge, and now it's down to 6 feet, and they've added this dormer here so that there's enough headroom at the elevator in order to be able to get somebody out. So my thoughts, I'm going to shift now to my thoughts about this proposal, is that this is all drawn beautifully, and this is lovely, and the back of the building is kind of decrepit now, just as the front was, and it's so wonderful that this is being renovated, and it's so wonderful that such care has been taken in matching the details and having the exposure of the new siding match the existing exposure of the siding, that the windows will be divided up appropriately from, to what the architectural vocabulary would have been when the original building was constructed. And my only hesitation about it was sort of this business here. Again, pardon me scrolling for a moment. I know how frustrating that can be. This here. So I think that as a commission, we have leeway to approve something that's a little extraordinary because of the need to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act. And so I think this is a consequence of compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act. So those are my thoughts, and I wonder if commission members have anything that they would like to say about the proposal.
Can I ask a couple of questions?
Yeah.
I'm in the drawing that had the roof drawn in with just the black line, it looked much smaller than on this drawing. I just want to get a sense of how large the roof line truly is, because on the architectural drawing, it looks like it's a little bit bigger than the building on the left that used to be the library, and a little bit smaller than the building on the right. Is that correct?
Yeah, would you like me to answer that?
Yes, thanks.
Hey, Eric.
Yeah, I think probably the difference is with the architectural drawings, you're looking at something in 2D from a flat viewpoint up probably quite a bit higher than you'll be standing on the street looking at the structure. When you take a photograph and try to draw what you're going to see, it looks very different. As a matter of fact, you might not even see the dormers there because they're so kind of behind the museum, and just from perspective view, they're kind of fading from sight. Particularly the closer you get to the museum, there'll be less that you see. So it's trying to, it's a little deceptive because you're down and the ridges are moving. I'm not really sure how to explain it, but it looks like the ridge in this new ridge is a lot lower than the Payne-Higgins store ridge. In reality, it's almost the same height, but from this perspective, it would look a lot lower, I guess.
Yes, I think that's right, Eric. I mean, to put it concisely, when you draw a head-on elevation, you're looking at it kind of halfway up the elevation and you see everything in the same plane. But the reality is that this is not in the same plane as this or this. It's significantly back behind it. So as a result, when you're standing on Main Street here, you may barely see it. And when you're standing across Main Street, you'll see a part of it, depending upon how tall you are.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And then the other question I have is the roof that we see now in between the two buildings, that roof remains?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thanks. I just wanted to be absolutely clear. Does anyone else have any other questions or comments?
You know, my concern was the dormer. I mean, I think the front view, it really is kind of well done in that you're going to have a consistent roof lines between the three buildings, which I like, but the dormer seemed a little off to me because that would have ruined the symmetry a little bit. But if you say that that's going to be kind of, that this view of it is more pronounced than it actually will be in reality, then I don't have a problem with it.
And Susan, if I could speak to that for a moment.
Sure.
Also, I think that the alternative to the dormer would be to raise the ridge even higher so that it wound up being approximately 10 feet above the cross gable ridge, as opposed to being 6 feet above the cross gable ridge. And at 10 feet above the cross gable ridge, it would be much more visible. So I think you probably won't see the dormer. And the positive effect of them having designed the dormer is that they have clearance from the elevator without having to raise the ridge further than is shown on this sketch.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions?
And the columns in the walkway in the back, or I'm assuming that's a walkway or a little porch walkway. thing.
Yeah, let me get to it. I'm sorry. Give me a moment.
That's okay. Sorry.
It's just, I'm getting there.
Getting there. You're getting there.
Okay, I got
There
there.
it
Yeah.
is.
Those columns are, that's because those are lovely there. I certainly hope those stay in the design.
Yeah,
And there's
Is
a
that like
ramp
a
that-
walkway or is that? what
Well,
is
there's
that?
a ramp that comes up here.
Oh, there's the ramp. Yeah. Okay.
Right? And so your entrance that for accessibility is back through here.
Right.
And
But
so,
those, is that, so that's got to be a building wide walkway there on that part of that building. Is that correct?
say it again, Susan.
So where the columns are in the back entrance that you created, that's going to be like a pathway that has columns and that obviously is accessible for a wheelchair, but
Yeah,
will run that whole length of that area.
I guess a covered porch. with
Covered
columns.
porch. Yeah.
it's 8 feet deep.
Okay, great.
That's very successful, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
And Eric, I wonder if you could just speak to a moment about the windows that you've chosen and the siding material that you've chosen, so the board can be completely clear about those two items.
Okay. Well, a final determination hasn't been made. We're pricing out both Marvin windows and Anderson windows. I think we'll probably go with the Marvin. They do a little bit better job of architectural authenticity. They will have black sashes, but the frame will all be white. The trim on the outside of the windows will match the trim on the front of the museum, which was the original trim. So there'll be double hung windows. There'll be 6/6. The grills in the windows will be bonded to the glass with a interior divider. So while it will be insulated glass, it would be hard to tell that they're not original authentic windows. They're really the best you can do with modern technology to recreate the historic look.
And how compatible is the light cut configuration on the new windows with that which originally existed on the building?
Well, the original windows were all, the actual pane size is 9 inches wide, 12 inches high. And that's what these new windows will end up being. So that's kind of, you work from the pane
Right.
size and then out from that. So that's what we're trying to match. The siding, we'd like to use hardy board, ferro cement clapboards with a 4-inch exposure. They'd be painted.
And does the 4-inch exposure match that which exists on the building already?
Yes, it does. On the back side of the Payne Higgins store, which is on the right as you're looking at this detail, his clapboards, they're 4-inch exposure. The structure on the left, which is actually 262 Main Street, that is right now shingled. I'm sure it was originally clapboard. It has shingles that vary in age and quality. There's a whole bunch of shingles with knots in them and whatnot. We'd like to replace that whole facade and replace it with clapboards there as well.
Mhm. Okay.
And
And-
the materials of the window, what will they be on the outside and the inside? Are they wood on inside
They're
or?
wood on the inside. On the outside, if they're Marvin, they would be aluminum clad. If they're Anderson, they would be vinyl.
Mhm.
But again, you'll see very little of that because the trim pretty much covers all but a little bit of the actual profile of the window frame.
So you'd have them without brick mold, basically, and you put new casing right up to the edge.
Yes, new casing to match the casing on the front.
And none of the standard brick mold would be visible.
No, and we'd have a historical sill, which is a slightly larger profile than to match the old windows as well.
Mhm. Would you
And-
excuse me for a minute? I
and-
have to stop screen sharing so I can see if Luke wants to come in. I apologize. It'll just take me a moment.
Maybe I can ask a question while you do that.
Okay.
The black muntins, does the rest of the building have black muntins?
Yes,
It does, okay. I didn't
that
notice
was that was original to the building. We did hire a paint specialist that analyzed the paints on all the sashes, doors, clapboards, on everything on the trim, and that's represented in the colors you see on the front of the building now. Those were the original historic colors. And
So startling, I might add.
Which is very typical of historic houses. They were much more colorful than we've been socialized to believe.
Right, exactly.
Inside
Sometimes we
and
have
out.
a bright door today, but otherwise not so much.
Right.
Yeah.
Does anybody have, any commissioner have any other comments or questions?
Well, I wonder about the cement board clapboard and what you and Luke think about that material.
Luke, are you with us, Luke? I admitted Luke, but he was muted.
Oh, yes, he's still muted, but
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh,
Yes.
hey, Luke.
thank you.
Hi,
Welcome.
how are you?
Good.
I wonder if you could comment about the proposed siding material, Luke, if you have any comments about that.
I like the whole project, and I know Eric will do a great job. I'm not even opposed to the hardy board siding.
Mhm.
I know that we've had some trouble passing it for applications in downtown already, and I think that we need to set a precedent and stick with it instead of, I understand we're going by case off. Everything we hear could potentially have a different outcome, but these are several buildings that have popped up in the downtown area, and we've objected strongly to using hardy backer on some buildings. So personally, I think if it's done well and painted out well, it's a fine product, and I think in some applications we will end up needing to accept it with the close proximity to downtown buildings. But I just like to think that although we're doing a case by case scenario, we kind of have some guidelines that we stick to, and maybe we should just decide to consider it in all applications. I'd be fine with that personally also, especially if it's done well. And there's actually a new product that came out that is put out by AZAC that I just got a sample of, that is a very convincing alternative to a cedar clapboard. Maybe that's something we'd want to look at for other projects coming up. I'd like to use it at some point, but those are my thoughts. I like the project in its entirety, really, and I know Eric will do a great job. So,
My impression of the material, Merrill, is that when it's painted, in this instance, it's going to be virtually indistinguishable from clapboard siding.
So you've seen that done, Gordon?
Yeah, hardy board, when it's painted, you really have to look, tap it, experience it in a very close-up fashion in order to even be able to speculate that it's not clapboard.
And could you and Luke talk about the pros and cons of the material?
Well, the biggest two cons, in my opinion, are unless something's changed, and I could be wrong, I believe they only come in 12-foot lengths. So if you have a long run, it needs to be broken up with several joints, where that might not be necessary with a true cedar board. And then also the manufacturer specifies that you leave 1/8 of an inch gap between the clapboard and any thing that it borders up against, being a window or trim or corner boards. And that gets a special caulk that the manufacturer supplies, but it doesn't let you do as fine a joints as you might be able to do with a cedar product, due to leaving that 1/8 of an inch gap everywhere.
And I'm sure
those are
Luke, I'm sure that's required because the coefficient of thermal expansion is going to be different for hardy board than it is for adjacent wood. And if they came right up against each other, as the wood took on moisture and expanded, it would push against the hardy board.
Yeah, that's my understanding also. But I also think it's a fine product, and it's hard to it's hard to, I don't like rejecting it because I think it has a long lifespan. It comes pre-coated in all kinds of different colors, which could potentially cut down or eliminate a paint contract. There's a one that has like a wood grain, and one that doesn't, is more smooth. And it's the whole product in general has come a long way. I mean, 15 years ago, it was a very different product. And it's more convincing now, I think.
Mhm. So Eric and John, I wonder if you can talk a little bit about why you've selected using a basically synthetic material to replace, a wood clapboard.
Well, I think it's just we're looking down the road. These new products should last, several times the lifetime of cedar clapboards, which need constant attention and are very difficult to keep paint on them, and particularly on a northern exposure where we're going to have probably moisture that doesn't dissipate very quickly. We are planning on using red cedar clapboards on that little gable you do see from the street side, and to match what's already on the museum. But Luke is right about the having to leave 1/8-inch joints between when you're butting up against something, and it's fairly expensive, but there's a good flexible caulking you can put in there, and then that gets painted. So it's not like you're seeing gaps where the wood joins up. It's just that you need to put a flexible caulking in there, which will expand and contract. The hardy board expands and contracts in every direction, unlike wood, which has very little expansion along the vertical grain. So that is a bit of a downside, but you really have to know what you're looking for to tell that it's not regular clapboards there. And our hope would be that we'll not be, hiring paint contractors to grind everything down every 15 years for the upkeep on which you.
But you'll do that for the front facade, right? Because the front facade is painted wood.
Yes. Yeah.
And also, I think it's important to note that this facade, the rear facade, will become more prominent because there's now the staircase where you can park behind town hall and walk up a staircase and enter through this covered porch. And there's going to be some ADA compliant parking, I think, back behind here too. So this really becomes a second sort of entrance elevation.
That's right.
I think it's going to look fantastic. I'm excited about it. So I'm the new secretary, and I just want to make sure I get everybody's names correctly. So Eric, are you the architect builder? What is your role?
No, I am just the chairman of the building committee. I'm on the board of directors and vice president of the museum.
Thank
The
you.
architect is Stephen Hayes.
And the builder is Brian Hopkins, am I correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And hardy board. Can you spell that for me? Because
HARDIE -board is usually the way it's spelled.
got you. Thank you. I just want to make sure I didn't.
Any more questions, Susan?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
I guess I have a question, which is, are you planning on having the wood grain or the smooth clapboard on the hardy board on the back?
The smooth.
Good.
Good to
Thank you.
hear.
Because one of the things that gives that material away is that it's embossed, and then the embossing repeats itself like every 5 boards. And so it looks fake to me. I think if it's just smooth and you let it be what it is, it's much more successful.
I agree.
I'm not trying to promote AZAC, but I did come across a new sample of a AZAC clapboard that is brand new to the market. I've only seen a sample. I haven't worked with the material yet, but it's I was pretty impressed, and I'm not suggesting that you switch gears, but I think it'll come up at some point. I'd like to use it on a project at some point, and to me it looks very convincing, more so than the hardy board. But that might be another alternative. It still would need to be painted. I don't
Yeah,
think it
and I would
comes in different
assume it
colors.
would still need joints with the AZAC trim. You need to leave joints for expansion as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know what lengths it comes in. I think the rep said it may only come in 12s also.
So I think that, in looking at the massing of the work, I think it's not great to have that ridge rise above the cross gable, but I think it is necessary because of the need to comply with accessibility standards. And I think that the project as drawn looks very nice, and it's certainly a big improvement to, for goodness sake, guys, that's where we are now. So does anyone have a motion?
Well, I also just would like to say that I really appreciate the care that's gone into this design. And it's very helpful to have the whole description about why it needs to be the way that it is in order to be ADA compliant. I feel a little sad about those gables as well, but it seems like that's the only solution.
And Meryl, I think that they'll be less prominent, Meryl, than they appear to be on the elevation drawing.
Yeah, it was helpful to see it from the other side and get a sense of what it would look like from the street. Do you want to make the motion, Gordon, since you have the best sense of how to do this for this project?
I move that the proposal be accepted as submitted, with the understanding that the width of the rear extension is determined by the need to make the building accessible under federal and state standards, and that the impact of that has been minimized as much as possible, such that the ridge is as low as it possibly can be over the cross gable.
Great. I would like to second the motion. And I guess we should get the pictures of everybody back so Susan can, or we could just do ayes. Why don't we just do it by name? So Meryl, I say aye.
Gordon, aye.
Aye. Jim, aye.
Mac, aye.
Luke, aye.
Susan, I.
Okay. Congratulations. We look forward to seeing the progress.
Yeah, very
Thank you
exciting.
very much. And just to
Yeah.
note that this was actually 3 separate properties. It's all been combined now. So we're operating as 262 Main Street now.
Oh,
for
now 260.
your
Oh, good.
business. It took a long time to get the fire department to change their 911 system around.
What I'm circling now used to be 262, I think, right?
Well, right to the center of the double doors on the right structure, the lot line went right through the circular stair, right through the building.
Really?
Very bizarre, and I don't know how, it was like one of the first condominiums or something. I don't.
Huh.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks, John.
Thank you very much. I'm
Yeah,
just,
could I just ask, does a letter go to the building department with this, or what's?
Yes, we send a note to the building department with a summary of all of the findings from our meeting, and that will be done as soon as possible tomorrow or the next day.
oh, that's wonderful.
All right,
Thank you very much.
You're
And I
welcome.
can-
Thank you both.
And I congratulate myself in not having said anything. I couldn't have.
Good work, John.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for letting us see you nonetheless. Okay, the next property is 90 Lieutenant Island Road.
Oh, no, I think we're not.
Oh, that wasn't supposed to be on the application. I'm sorry.
We're going to 276 Main Street.
Okay, thank you.
So the Thomas and Mary Smith House. Hey, Mark, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you can do it.
We moved 2 doors down the street from the Historical Society, and we're working with our clients to restore and bring this building up to some new standards. There's been some bad renovations in the past, including some plastic shutters and vinyl windows that we plan to remove and replace with historically correct windows.
Let me turn for a moment, Mark, from the Form B, which documents the history of the house, the old Holbrook house. And I think we're all very familiar with this house also. It really sits above the town.
Right.
Definitely, thanks.
Yeah, and it's quite lovely. But Mark, before you go, let me turn to here we go. So why don't you go? This is the site plan showing the house.
Mhm.
Main Street is here. The subject property is here. And when I spoke with your office, you were kind enough to amend your application to provide really informative photos of how the project will work. So I'll just go page by page and maybe you can talk to us about what's going on.
Sure.
So here we are.
Mark, can I just interrupt and ask, you're the architect or the builder, or?
We're the architects. I'm joined here by, who's muted right now, Don DeRocco, my business partner, who's going to add some detail to this conversation.
Great, thank you.
So this is the front of the house facing Main Street. And aside from the windows and shutters, the main change that we will see here is that there are 2 front doors, because I think at one time this was a multifamily house. We're going to eliminate the entryway on the right-hand side and enclose that as a porch with railings. And then there will only be one entrance to the house into a new foyer inside. The shutters will be removed. The windows will be replaced. The 3 windows on the 3rd floor will be replaced with what we believe, but if you have any other information, that would be great. With arch-topped windows.
And you can see the arch top is sort of still, there's a remnant of it there.
Yeah. And really, most of the work is going to be done on the back of the house, on the parking lot side, where we are. This side will receive the railing will be removed in the middle. The railings will be added in the front porch, and yeah. And in the back is where most of the work's going to take place. We're getting rid of the deck that's there. We're opening up what's going to be a kitchen, dining, family room on the 1st floor to the backyard with new French doors and new windows and a new deck.
And adding a window here.
Adding 1 window over there, yep.
And this is the new rail detail that you're providing?
That's the new rail detail for the rear.
With
Right now there's a big concrete areaway which we're covering over and adding a deck above it.
And then you're going to use Norwood windows, which are wood-clad windows?
They're wood windows with a proprietary paint that Norwood has developed. They don't need to be clad. They have a coating on them, so they can maintain a very, very small kind of putty-edged glazing bar.
Ah, great for that.
We use these a lot. We use them in Provincetown all the time. They look, unless you get up very close, they look like a historically correct single putty glazed window.
That's terrific. Yeah, I like those windows. A lot of what you're doing is on the inside, but I just want to one more time go through so that the commission can fully understand what is going to change on the exterior of the building. So I'm going to go through one more time. And looking here, I'm going to just point with this cursor and maybe you can describe what's happening. So over here,
Over here, that's entry stairs being removed. Don, you want to join us? Entry stairs being removed, it's going to be replaced with a railing. So that will become a porch, not an entry.
And we're replicating the railing you see on the detail down below. That's the original railing. We're going to have spindles turned to match the existing.
okay. So this railing here is going to be installed here, and this is
Yeah.
a porch, not an entry. Okay. And then these windows are being replaced with what we think are archtop windows.
Right.
And you inferred that they were archtop by looking at the molding profiles around them.
Yeah, the casing is still in place for all the original windows, and that's what really triggered us to believe that there were archtop windows there. All the windows in the house have been replaced, and they were replacement windows that were installed within the existing sashes, so they become smaller. So it looks like on the inside, they just sort of took out the archtop windows and put in rectangular windows.
And the windows that you're replacing now are going to be what we refer to in the city as brick to brick. You're going to go the full width of the opening, so you're not inserting something within something else.
Correct. We're taking out the original frames and putting in new frames of the same size.
Right.
And then the casing that's going around those windows, I guess they won't have brick mold, right? It'll have casing that matches that which is there. You'll buy them uncased.
That's correct.
Okay. And then on this elevation, this is what we just described.
May I ask a question about that porch? Will the porch be the same dimensions that it is now, just with the added balustrade?
Yes.
Okay.
We think it may, as Mark said earlier, the house has been divided up into multiple units over time. And we think that porch may have originally not had stairs to the yard, that it may have been enclosed by a full baluster. So we're not touching the roof, the posts or anything. We're just infilling a section where we believe the baluster was removed.
Great. And so it will have the same trim that it has now?
Absolutely, yes.
All of this kind of
Great.
bracketing.
It's in remarkably good condition. You know,
Yeah,
the one
it's
thing about this
lovely.
house,
Thanks.
it has been maintained. It's had some bad things done to it, especially to the windows, but they've maintained the trim work, so it's in pretty good shape.
Great. Okay.
And then back here, tell me again what you're doing.
We're removing, there's an oval window that's not original. It's in a powder room right now. We're removing that.
Oh, this window here?
Yes.
And
And
then window? Yeah.
then the window to the right is going to be about the same width, not quite as long. That's going to be a window in the kitchen. So it's going to be a little bit shorter than the window that's there. We're replacing the railings on the stairs as sort of a cheap lattice railing that you see right there. We're replacing that railing to match the railing that exists on the porch. The railing on the rear porch is different than the railing on the front porch. It's not original, but it is turned balusters. So we're going to replicate that on the steps. And right where your cursor is now, that's a portion of the porch that they extended outwards to go around the back of the house. That we're removing that corner. That's not original. So the porch will end where the roof ends.
Right here.
Right.
And so the dimension of this window, the sill is being raised to accommodate a kitchen countertop going below it?
Correct.
And the balustrade, will that continue around the back of the house, or I guess you'll go around? Oh,
Yeah.
Right now it does extend towards the back of the house. We're going to bring it back to where it originally stopped. So it's just going to be underneath the existing porch.
Okay, great.
And then we're
Thanks.
adding a completely independent deck, an open deck on the rear of the house that's going to have a wood railing.
Okay.
And that wood rail in the detail that you've drawn, I can't tell because it's small, looks like neither the front balustrade or this balustrade. Is that correct?
Right. We decided to make it a very simple square spindle, so it didn't look like it was trying to mimic the more ornate porches.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
And then it would read as a later addition.
Uh-huh. which
And
makes
it'll be
sense.
true for the side deck and the back deck.
Mhm.
And all the existing porches have a kind of replaced vertical lattice underneath that closes off underneath the porches. You can see there that blue. That detail exists on the side porches. We're going to take that off and put on a square lattice.
Good. It's a minor comment, but sometimes I find it more successful to place these balusters closer together rather than further apart. I know that, we sometimes do it so that they comply with code in terms of the space between them. But sometimes if there are 3 per tread instead of 2 per tread, it can be a nicer appearance. I'm not saying you have to do that. I'm just saying that as an aside. And I think about Frank Lloyd Wright's home and studio in Oak Park, for example, if you look at that railing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We could look at that.
One question we had for you is we weren't able to locate any original photographs, and it looked like in the packet you had, there was a pretty nice photo looking down Main Street at the side of the house.
Hold on for 1 second. So this is a Form B, and it's available on the Macros site, Massachusetts.
Okay.
And it contains really what we were able to document in terms of the history of the house.
Yep.
I can certainly send this to you, or if you simply go to the Wellfleet Town website and go to the Historic Commission page, you'll see on the left side there are a list of things you can do, and one of them is tips for using the Macros system. If you click on that and then go through the process of moving the town of Wellfleet over and then the address over, click on it, this will come up. And I can also just send it to you, but it's good to know how to use that. One of our goals is to document as much as we can possibly document in the town using Form Bs on the Macros site.
We were proposing
the website.
I beg your pardon?
Deep enough dive.
I didn't hear you, Mark. I'm sorry.
I said we didn't do quite a deep enough dive, I think.
Yeah, well,
We're certainly on your website.
it's everything is a little hidden.
Yeah. We're proposing on the big double hung windows to do 2/2, and that's what it looked like was in the photo. You had a nice
which
photo. It was down further.
Farther, the older photos at the bottom, yeah.
Yeah.
You have that old.
And we weren't really sure. Keep going. There was one. I think it's coming up.
It was a historic.
This one.
Yeah, that
So
one.
when you can see that the house had 2/2, we believe that the bays were probably 1/1, and it looks like they were the narrow windows in the bay.
Mhm.
Yeah, these were 1/1, I think, and
Yeah,
these were 2/1.
Everybody else
Which,
2/2.
and
Wait, 2/1 or 2/2?
I'm sorry, 2/2.
2/2. Yeah. Okay.
2/2, which I think is utterly consistent with this architectural vocabulary.
Right.
This would be 1/1, and this would be 2/2.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what we have.
I think that's totally right. This is kind of a nice thing. God,
Yeah,
I wish
that's
I could see if
beautiful.
there were arch top windows here. Can I?
You'd have to zoom in a lot. I don't know if you can do that from your.
I definitely can't do it. Maybe somebody else
Yeah, I
could.
think-
Carlos from my office is already gone for the day, so it's not going to happen, guys. But maybe if you guys look at this within your office, you could blow it up and see.
Is that the only photograph we know of?
It may be that the Historical Society, actually, who we just heard, has some other photographs on file. You may want to check in with them and see.
We
Maybe.
A lot of
don't
historic photos of.
recall, because I know he's got some history with this building, so.
Yeah.
It's possible to go on the Historical Society website there's a section of historic photographs, and you can go to different categories, and they do have a category of houses. So you could potentially just look yourself and see if you could find it on their website.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, I really feel personally, just now speaking opinion wise, I feel really good about what you guys are doing, and I appreciate the research that you've done. Thank you for taking time to revise your presentation to us so that it was able to be explained more clearly. That makes a big difference and saves time in my office trying to get the presentation together. And thank you for taking such care in noting what was original and what was added and preserving what's important. And also thank you for providing a rail at the back that is not a fake version of something that's real old. and instead lends to the history of something that was done in the present day, as opposed to trying to make it look like it was done a long time ago, so that visually one could see the history of the house, which I think though that is also part of the guidelines that the Department of the Interior publishes.
Yeah.
Does any commissioner other than Merrill or I have any other comments about the project?
I think I'm so pleased that this house is getting some attention. It's just such a beautiful example, and it really is a gorgeous building. So I think your designs are really respectful of its history. And yeah, I'm very, very positively responding to your.
Could I make just a brief comment? As I used to own this building in the
Oh.
80s up until the
Oh, really?
mid-90s.
Hey, Eric.
And when we had it, I believe, in that third floor gable, there was 2 windows.
Up here?
Yes, 2 windows, and they were arch-top windows. But when we sold it, they did major renovations, and they may have found old pictures showing that it was 3 windows and tried to replicate that. So I don't know that originally it was 2 or 3, but when we had it, it was 2.
Interesting.
That's really surprising.
Well, maybe you guys can go back and take a look at.
Well, yeah, we'll take a look at the old photos.
Yeah, I mean, 3 is better than 2 because I always like having a space in the middle instead of a mullion.
And I'm trying to remember, on that side of the house, is it 3 windows below or is it 4?
It's 3, I think.
It's 3.
Yeah, so it kind of replicates that look. Yeah.
Seems
Well,
right.
it's a lovely house, and I also really appreciate the care that you've put into creating this design and trying to retrieve some of the architectural elements that have been changed. So it's exciting. I love this house too, and I'm so glad you're getting rid of the shutters.
Between what we're doing here and what the historical commission is doing and what the neighbor next door did, that part of that whole block is going to look fabulous.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it really
it's
does look
exciting.
nice. That old Parlante house really is looking good these days too, right
Right.
next door to you.
Yeah.
Okay. So any other comments from commission members, or should we make a motion? Okay. I would like to make a motion to accept this proposal as presented.
I second that motion.
Okay, I, Merrill, vote aye.
I, Gordon.
Huh?
Am I?
Luke, I.
Susan, I.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming before us, and we look forward to seeing the changes.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mark. It's nice to see you.
Likewise. Thank you. Gordon.
Take care.
All right.
Our next project is 70 Ryder Court.
Thank you.
And I believe Timothy is here, and I think George is here too. Is that right?
Correct.
Do you guys unmute yourselves?
Hello.
Hey. So many of you know this house is way back on Ryder Court before you go up the hill to Mill Hill Road. It's on the right as you're coming from Main Street back to Mill Hill Road. And over the years, George and his family have added onto it, and it's this kind of like sprawling, wonderful house, kind of tucked way back in there. And it is historic. It was the old Ryder house. It was constructed in approximately 1840. This is the Form B for the house. And you can see it's sort of a, exactly what you might expect, with wide corner boards. It has kind of Greek revival details. It's 5 bays, the door being in the center, nicely detailed. And George, here, and it also rambled, which I think is an important thing to note, that the historic photos of the house show sort of a rambling effect and a gathering of buildings, almost a cluster of forms, although the front is quite clear. Here's a photograph of the house today, which maintains the corner boards and the 5-part bays. More of it. Again, a little bit of rambling over here on the side. More rambling. So the house has been altered over time, but even with those alterations, the original kind of Greek revival center portion has been preserved. So one of the things that we look at as we're thinking about what we're doing here, I'm trying to see where.
I should just jump in with that planned photo. It's just a portion of the front of the house. It's not the overall.
Right. Thanks, Tim, because that was my, here we go. So the front of the house is here. The front of the house is here.
Correct.
And the proposed garage is here. And the garage extension, to my eye and my review of the proposal, doesn't impact any of the historic portion of the house. It's to the side with a simple shed roof. I'm going to keep going here. So Tim, help me with this. Here's the garage.
Yeah, so here's the garage, and then I just try to do a massing model of the, I guess the palimpsest is the best term for this, because it is, George has done a great job, but it's been built on over and over time. So I was just trying to sort of show the relationship between the two through a simple rendering.
So show me, where is my cursor now at the original front facade of the house?
No, that's your cursor is on the side of the house that faces the road right now.
So
if you're staring at the front facade, which faces south, which is actually further away on the screen, you would not see this at all.
Right.
Which I think this is the view from the street that you would see. The black or the darker box would be the slight view you would have of the garage from the street, although I have to amend that with the building that you see closest to you, or the additional structure. Yep, that one. Actually, on the left-hand side has what I believe is an outdoor shower or enclosed place, and then also additional foliage. So you would probably only see about 3 feet of this structure behind. And the back half of that building is sort of described by a series of small structures that are either existing or have been added over time. And that's the view I'm talking about right there.
And here's the shower.
Right.
And when I went to the site, I noticed where it was staked out, and it really kind of sets back in here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it is designed so it is really distinct from any historic portion of the house.
Yeah, we wanted to keep it a simple structure that was, and just similar detailing. The house, although the historic part was built in 1840, from what I understand from George, the latest renovations were completed in 2016. It's the only part of the house that this was touching. And so we keep maintain the materials from that work, but keep it separate. And with the guidelines put out by the Secretary of Interior, if this was removed in the future, it would have almost no impact on the site.
Right. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Without us having to say it. Can you talk a little bit about the materials you're planning on using? What is the siding? Tell me about the garage doors. Any windows you're planning on using?
Yeah, and I'll have George jump in because I know he has some of these details as far as he has a specific product for the garage door, which is detailed. I detailed as best as possible in the drafting, but we are going to be doing wood shingle siding with 6-inch trim to match, again, that facade that this directly attached to on the house. Awning windows that are small profile, separate from what is existing. Really,
are those windows vinyl, or are they?
It's still being sourced right now. I'm sure, as you know, everything is sort of is held back, and it's unless George, you have an answer specifically to what windows you're using.
Yes, I do.
Oh, good.
Please stand by.
Thanks, George.
Should have worn plaid.
So this is the picture of the, I'm not clear about which picture we're looking at for the design of the shed of the.
All right, good. Let's talk about that. So the garage is going here.
Right. I
This
just wanted to
direction
see the
is
design.
north.
I understand that. I just wanted to see the design of the garage itself. Is that it
Sure.
right there?
So this is the north elevation. So this would be if you're looking at it from here.
Okay. And so,
And then the east elevation is if you're looking at it from here.
And I think included are, those are George's initial sketches. I have more detailed representations of what those elevations would look like in this packet. And they might be further up.
Okay.
I'm trying to see the west.
That
that's,
would be the west. And that has been, is originally doing texture on 11, but we're going to go with the shingle.
Yeah, texture 111 is not going to be a good idea.
We're going with pre-stained raised shingles, 5 to the weather.
So can you keep going? Is this the end of the package? Or is there more? So we have
Well,
that, yeah.
no, just the massing model.
Okay.
And
Again,
then
if you-
this photograph.
Gordon, I think if you scroll up, there's the elevations that I had drafted for this presentation should be on there.
Yes, they are. I remember now. Here we go.
okay.
Oh, great. That's
Thanks,
awesome.
Tim.
Yep. No problem. I was like, I know I did them.
So this is east. This is east.
Okay.
That would, yeah, that's what you would see from the road with that view earlier that you showed in the
Right.
photograph.
And this is north, I assume.
Correct.
Mhm.
Okay.
This is
And
the
so
rear.
the view we would see if we were standing on the road is the first one.
Yes.
Is that right? Because it seems like that's what we should concern ourselves with the
Right.
most.
This is the one.
Okay. So it's shingled, and then what is the garage door made out of?
That's a metal door, steel door, with rigid insulation and a single row of insulated glass.
Mhm.
Now that row of insulated glass is shown incorrectly, and that's my fault for giving the misinformation to Tim. That top row is going to be lowered 1 row. So the glass will be
Here.
third, that's correct, third row up.
And then it will have panels above and below the glass?
Yes. Mhm.
This row would be paneled and these 2 rows would be paneled and this would be glass.
And I'm confused about the window. I guess I'm confused by this. Is that the connection to the house or is this a standalone? I'm still
This
confused.
window.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the garage itself rests higher than the level of the house. Within the corridor that you see on the right-hand side, which would be the covered connection to the existing structure, there is a window there, which is now the window pictured in the elevation that George wants to keep and just move sort of from this direction to the outside. That window opening would be replaced with a door that would connect to the corridor that goes to the garage.
Okay.
So this is an old existing window that you're
Yes.
relocating?
Yep. And if you, it's slightly hard to see in that drawing, but it would be sort of kitty corner to a window right next to it that's existing in the house, so they have a conversation.
And what is the structure? Oh, is that a shed that's in front of the structure there?
No, that's just, I didn't detail a section cut through. Oh, that, yes, that's an existing shed.
It
Okay,
is. I mean, it's really sort of a cluster of structures.
yeah.
That's really what we have here. And I mean, the garage door is going to be quite prominent. And, you know, I don't love pressed metal, but I do understand the need for it. My old wooden garage doors are certainly deteriorated and require a lot of painting. And plus I never open them, so.
The shingles are going to be stained gray,
Mhm.
and the door is going to be charcoal. So
Say it
that's gonna
again?
Help blend it in, and wash it.
George, I didn't understand. The door is going to be what?
Charcoal in color.
Oh, charcoal. Oh, okay, good.
I guess my difficulty with the door is that it looks like it would suit a modern house. It doesn't really look like it suits a historic house to me. And I know that there are options that are more, that make an attempt to look more historic than this does. So I wonder what caused you to choose this particular door?
Economy. This door cost about $4,800. To get one in their carriage house series is
Yeah.
$8,500.
Right. No,
And it still goes up and down the same. It just looks different, but you have to almost enter the property to see it.
Yeah, I think that's worth remembering is that this view, although is expressed pretty explicitly here, you would have to actually enter the property and then move within the structures in order to see that view. What you would see if you go down to that photo, thank you very much, Gordon, I think you know where I'm going with this, is that it will only peek out about where the cursor is. You won't see much of that. And so while I understand wanting to detail a more expensive and historic garage door, I think in George's defense that it'll be absolutely minimally impactful to do that with just the way that this site is set up with both the structures and the planting.
And so the garage goes out, how far? I realize we have shadows in this, but does it go beyond the dark shadow in the back there?
I would say it goes directly between, in this photograph, you could draw a line right down the middle between the hedge on the right-hand side and the shed, and that's about as far as it would go.
Right about here.
Can you go back to the plan that shows the buildings, the structures in place?
I can.
We're making Gordon do a lot of scrolling.
All right, Gordon.
I'm a good scroller.
You are a good scroller.
There you
that
go.
one. So there. Okay. So the front of the house is at the bottom of the page.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. So that's the front. And so
And the road is here.
But you don't see the front of the house from the road.
right, because it's
yeah.
facing away from the road, right? So
Yeah.
okay. Okay, that helps.
So this is just kind of tucked back in here. Is
Right,
this.
right.
Which is not to say that when you come down the hill, if you were to come down Ryder Court from Mill Hill Road,
Right, you see it.
you see it. And you come.
The good
around.
thing about that is that actually there's quite a slope on that, and
There is.
there is a lot of foliage. I'm sure you all know I live up the street, so I actually walk this road all the time and would be seeing this project on the regular. I would say that this is actually more hidden when you're coming from that road because you're going to be elevated, I think, about 10 feet above that as you're coming down that. The road slants from north to south.
I think one of the things that I'm looking at here is that the new addition does not negatively impact any historically significant portions of the existing house. And the house has been added onto in really quite a rambling way over many, many years. And George has cared for it and loved it, I know. And I feel like this is just one more ramble. It's 2021's ramble. But I'd be interested in what other commissioners have to say.
You know, it looks like a very,
Well,
it looks like a very modern building. I'm sorry, Luke, did I cut you off?
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
Okay, so, and, which I think is great. I mean, I don't have a problem with that because I think it does separate itself from the historic original building that way and can be
Right.
really beautiful. I guess the garage door, you know, I again feel like that should, maybe it will, because of the coloration, will mesh better, but that's the one piece of it that I have some issue with, just because you can't see it as you come down. But you know, that's my only concern about the design. But I think it's great. I don't have a problem with the fact that it represents today's version of that rambling structure.
Right.
Um,
Luke?
I think that I totally understand wanting to have more garage space, and I think that this is a design that will, you know, let George have that space. And I was just thinking about how there's totally different philosophies on whether to make your addition look like the historic structure or to have it stand out against the historic structure. And more recently, we've heard from Sarah suggesting that we go with the stand out and be its own entity, totally different than what was the historic structure. So I just want to point out that maybe we should be keeping that in mind.
Yeah, no, I agree.
In the design of this, I also had the option of going 2 floors and just making this horrendous looking glob. But what was original to the property, and I don't have any photographs to substantiate it, but there was a wagon shed that sat to the west and slightly to the north of where we're working here. So I opted to keep a low profile garage. We can call it a wagon shed because it's shaped the same way with the high front and the low back. And the wagon shed that was there, I used to play on the roof until I fell through it too many times, spanking, and my grandmother had it torn down. So here we go again.
Well, we hope nobody falls through the roof of this one.
I hope not either.
The truth is, subjectively, I'm not wild about that garage door. That said, we don't want to be onerous. And that garage door, as much as I hate to admit it, is a door of today.
Right.
As opposed to looking like a carriage house door with faked out strapping on it and all that stuff.
Now, I think what's more important to me is that the garage is differentiated from the historic structure.
Yeah.
That's criterial to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments? Or should we go ahead with a motion? Who'd like to make the motion?
I'll make it. I'll motion that we accept this proposal as presented.
Second?
Okay.
Aye.
I'm Merrill, vote aye.
Gordon, aye.
Mac, aye.
Jim, aye.
Susan, I.
Okay.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thanks, George.
Enjoy your new
Thanks,
Thank you
garage.
Tim.
very much. I appreciate your attention.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, George.
Thank you, Gordon. I realized I had printed out the previous agenda and not the current agenda, so I appreciate your keeping me on track with the addresses.
Sure, I got it all here somehow.
Yeah, you
Mr.
organized this meeting incredibly well.
Thank you. I attribute it to Carlos in my office. He was a great help to me because I couldn't figure out how to make the files smaller. It's just, which really brings us to the next item on the agenda, which is this Wellfleet Historical Commission application. And sort of the motivation for rewriting the application was so that when we received applications, they would be easier to manipulate into a presentation. For example, we got an application recently that had 10 photographs in 10 different files. So it would mean that I would have to click, 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 scroll, go back and forth. I could never do it. So I had Carlos in my office sort of take the whole thing and turn it into one PDF and then somehow reduce the size of the PDF so it was mailable.
Yeah.
So this new application really endeavors to tell people that we would like to have everything in PDF format in one PDF, and that we'd like to have drawings arranged such that the existing conditions and the proposed conditions are either side by side or above and below each other, so that we can simply refer one to the other, so we have a better understanding of the application. So Meryl, I'll let you take it from there. Do we have anything to do before we
I
do?
think that we've sent this to everybody so that you've all seen it. Am I right about that?
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions about it or issues with it?
No, it seems very clear and certainly makes a lot of sense, and hopefully you won't run into those kind of problems anymore.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No, I like it.
Good. That's our hope.
Well done.
Okay, and we'll talk about the follow-up to the guidelines as we go down and talk about the meeting with the select board. Is that okay with you, Gordon?
Yep. Should we then, do we have to vote on having this application submitted to the town to put on the website, or?
There's no harm in voting. I think that would be a good idea.
So I move that the application as presented be accepted.
I second the motion. Meryl vote aye.
Gordon, aye.
Mac, aye.
Jim, I.
Susan, I.
Luke, I.
Hooray. So that's great. And we hope to get this up and running very soon. Let's see, the next item on the agenda is Lynn Smilage's presentation for the Historical Commission on October 25th. We were so happy that there were so many people that registered for this event. It was almost 200 people registered for it. And I heard from Jennifer Workton said to expect that not everybody would attend, and she was right, but she said we had 185 attendees. So
That's
that was
amazing.
really terrific.
It really is. That's great.
Yeah. And I thought it was just lovely, and on lots of counts, it was really lovely to have people kind of excited to see each other. Lots of people that had moved to other places for the winter saying hello to each other, being happy to see each other. It felt like the village that it always was. And then Lynn did a wonderful job, I thought, of putting together the history of Wellfleet and how it's developed, and then giving a primer on architectural styles, and then going into some of the specific stories about the houses. And people were very engaged and wanted to stay longer than we were scheduled for and wanted more. So that was really great. And I just want to thank everybody who participated in word of mouth and in PR and in getting this off the ground. So we are thinking about more presentations, and Jim and I will be Jim and I are meeting on Friday at the library, and Jim, I'm thinking we can talk then maybe a little bit more about CPC funding and how that would work if we apply for more money. And I don't know, maybe it would make sense to touch base about it now in terms of the deadlines. Am I correct that there's a deadline coming up for us to apply for funding for this coming year, or do we already have the funds to allocate for this coming year?
No, there was only a deadline for the December town meeting, and that would be for a few proposals that would go forward. They wouldn't be funded until the spring, probably. But it would be the December town meeting, and we're not certain that any will go forward, given the financial uncertainties in the town at this point.
Okay.
So it won't be until the spring, really, that there will be consideration of all of the proposals that can be made from the 4 areas.
Okay. So if we want to have funding then for next spring, we would need to apply for that December town meeting. Is that correct?
We would, but I discovered today from Mary Rogers that we actually have more money than I thought available for workshops. So I think in excess of $1,000. So.
Oh my. Okay.
I think we'll be all right.
Okay. And how are we in terms of Form Bs? Do we have any more money for Lynn than she's contracted for?
We do indeed. We have funding sufficient for 25 more Form Bs.
Okay, 25 more in addition to what she's already contracted for?
25 more, that's right.
And do you know how many she's contracted for so far?
I'm not sure. She's completed all of the ones that she had been previously contracted for. So these would be 25 in addition to that, based on the unexpended amounts in the 2 grants, the 2018 and the 2019. So it'd be 25 in addition to what she's already done.
Okay, so that means then that I think she's done in excess of 100 Form Bs so far for us in the year 2020. And so that means she would be doing only 25 for us in the year 2021. And if we don't apply for funding, then that means for 2022, she probably wouldn't have any work from us at all.
That's right. Yes.
And it does seem like, my understanding is that she's the best preservation specialist we've had yet, and that it would be good to try to hold on to her.
I would agree entirely with that assessment. Yes. Yes.
I like her too.
Good. We all like her. So I guess that's my concern. I mean, I do get that the town has financial issues, but I thought the funding from the CPC was from the state, not from the town.
Most of it comes from the town.
But it's separate from, it's a separate thing from the financial status of the town, because it's a separate tax that
Right.
goes into that fund.
But the
Yeah.
accounting, I guess the accounting difficulties are making
Oh.
it difficult to ascertain the funding that exists. It's not a matter of the money not being there, it is, but it's just accounting for it.
I think that
I
the
can make
presentation,
that distinction.
I think the presentation, Merrill, that you organized so beautifully, is such a success on many levels because it educates the town, and perhaps even more importantly, it puts us in a good light because we had such a terrible reputation for so long for saying no to everything, and people really didn't like us. And it's just great kind of like branding to turn around and become a commission that explains why it's making the decisions it's making and talks about the history of buildings, talks about the idea that buildings evolve over time. And her presentation talked about that over and over again. It's so clear that, our motivation for approving things is not, or disapproving things is not to be schmucky. It's because there are guidelines that we base our decisions on based on, historic preservation practices. And so I feel like having more presentations really goes a long way to getting people enthusiastic about the history of town and goes a long way to making us look a lot better than we've looked over the past 5 years.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, I don't even want to know about all that, but okay.
There was one thing in particular, but no matter.
Yeah, thank you, Gordon. I appreciate it.
And I think we should apply for money. I mean, I think this is a good thing for the town.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah,
a good thing.
I
This
guess
is,
I feel like there's no harm in applying for money. We might get turned down, but we might as well apply, and that will allow us to continue to do our work. If we don't apply, then we'll be doing one half of what our mandate is. Because
Yeah,
our
well,
mandate is to protect and preserve the historic buildings and to keep up with the historic inventories of the town.
Well, we won't make the deadline for the December town meeting if any proposals are, considered there at all. I'm not sure they will be. We certainly would make the deadline for the spring town meeting. And that's still within the calendar year of 2022.
Okay, so what is the deadline for the December town meeting?
It hasn't been set. It hasn't been set yet.
So if we, what do you have to provide to
Well,
ask for funding?
Well, we would need a proposal.
Right,
And I'm sure it's based on our, needs assessment that we
right.
are going to be presenting at the next meeting of the CPC, but certainly generating more Form Bs would be very much in keeping with what we have been doing and want to continue to do.
and could we also have funds for another presentation or two? in there?
Absolutely.
'Cause I
Yeah,
think that both those things go a long way to both preserving the history of town
I
and
agree.
building kind of a community.
I agree entirely with that. Yeah, we can do both. We can do both.
Don't we have those proposals kind of in the can already? Aren't they someplace from past proposals we made to the CPC? Has anybody seen any of those?
I haven't seen them. Do you have copies of them, Jim, from Tom?
I really don't have copies of what was submitted before.
That's a bummer.
I just have the spreadsheets that give us the amounts that were awarded.
Right,
Do you
okay.
think we could reach Tom and see if maybe he has a copy of what was submitted in the past, and then we could use that as a boilerplate for a
Absolutely,
new submission that could be done fairly quickly if we had his framework.
exactly.
Yeah.
And
And we
the other
might be
thing
able to
would
make
be
it-
perhaps to get them from Mary, who's the secretary of the CPC, because she does
Right.
seem to keep good records, and she
She
might. know
does.
it.
She's a marvelous resource.
She
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Maybe asking Tom first.
Yes.
So it doesn't look like we're not good record keepers.
He may have already gleaned that, but we'll see.
Right.
We are working on that.
We're getting better.
Right.
So let's see, do you think I wonder if we should vote on making an application for both December and the spring? Would that make sense to people?
I think vote on making an application for December if possible, and certainly an
Yeah,
application.
if
for
possible.
spring.
I don't think it's going to be possible, frankly. But,
Okay,
I think there are only 2 that are going forward, and those are iffy.
okay. All right.
So maybe we
hear you.
concentrate on getting the boilerplate if we can, and then
Yes.
making sure that we apply in time for the spring. town
Well, I'm
meeting.
sure it would be timely for the spring, no question.
Okay.
But we should get the boilerplate and we should figure out what we're
Oh,
talking
absolutely,
about.
yes. That would be, that would facilitate the whole process, yes.
Right.
So just for business sake, I'm going to make a motion that we do what Susan just said.
Okay.
That we plan to apply for the spring, and that we do the preparations that we need to in order to do that. Jim seconds the motion.
I second that motion, yes.
Okay.
Heartily.
Merrill votes aye.
Gordon, I.
I think we're
Susan, aye.
unanimous.
Yep.
Luke, are you still with us?
Yes, Luke.
Yeah, Luke, I.
Okay.
Hey, Luke, thanks.
Okay. And Jim, do let us know if you need any help with the proposal. I have complete faith that you can manage it, but let us know.
Okay, thank you.
Merrill, may I just go back to item 5, which is listed as item 5 on the agenda I have.
Okay.
It says new WHC application, which we talked about, and follow up with the building department. So we can't follow up with the building department because the new building inspector quit like in 3 days.
Yeah, we heard.
However,
And so we don't have a building inspector to
But we
follow
have-
up with.
we
And I
have an
said-
interim. We
I
have an interim.
called Ryan. I said, how can I help? He said, find an applicant. That was Ryan's response to me. So there's no building department to follow up with right now.
There is an interim building department person, but we'll have to see how long this person lasts. I don't quite understand what's going on there, but yeah, I agree with you. We need to-
Right now we have Victor and he's,
Oh, Luke,
We lost you, Luke.
we lost you, Luke. Are you at a soccer game or something?
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay, so we have Victor right now and he's been here for a while and I don't know who the next person will be, but Victor's very knowledgeable and aware of what's going on. So just so you know, he's there. It's not like
yeah.
the building department's totally shut down.
So it
Good.
might behoove us, Gordon, to try to meet with him, depending on how long he's going to be here. But it makes sense to not have that be the highest priority because there's a lot going on right now. and
Right,
I don't know
exactly.
how long he'll be here.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Design. And
Okay,
Michelle,
so the next-
Merrill, you wanted to update the design guidelines.
We talked about that
Okay.
and voted on it. And we're going to try to submit them, which relates to the next item on the agenda, which is the meeting with the select board.
Mhm.
I asked, you have to apply to meet with the select board these days. And so I applied to meet with them to talk about various things. I wanted to let them know that we have a full slate of commissioners now and let them know about the workshop and how it went. And let them know that Lynn had completed more than actually 140 Form Bs altogether. And talk about the fact that we had been working on a new application and new design guidelines to try to streamline our process of application and make our standards more clear to the public. And there were some concerns largely on Ryan Curley's part about the demolition delay and the design guidelines. And I'm not sure it makes sense to get into all the details, but in any case, what we agreed was that the Historical Commission would come back and speak with them at some point in the future about this. They didn't make it clear whether there were concerns about the application. There weren't any questions about the application. The questions were primarily about the design guidelines. So Gordon and I are planning on working on this and going before them together to talk about their concerns. And I did apply to meet with them again, and I heard back from Ryan today that they'll be able to meet with us again in about a month. So I wrote back to him and asked him whether there were any concerns with the application or whether it was okay with them if we go ahead with that. And I'll wait to hear back about that, but we are definitely going to talk with them about the design guidelines. Anything you want to add to that? Oh, I know. Well, the one other thing I should add is that we have consulted with Jennifer Congle and with Sarah Korchef. Oh, sorry, Jennifer Congle's the town clerk at Town Hall, and Sarah Korchef is the historic preservation specialist at the Cape Cod Commission. And there's one other person. But in any case, we've been consulting with people about these things along the way. And Helen Miranda Wilson also at the select board meeting, all three of them are saying the Historic Commission has the right to make these changes. And the select board doesn't have any jurisdiction over what we do. And the idea of speaking with the select board is primarily just to be transparent about what we do. And ideally to work on, we also are asking them whether there are other committees and commissions that they think we should share this with, because we want to have a working relationship with other boards and committees in town and have people understand what we're doing and why. So that's the goal.
And part of what we have to do, just very briefly, is I believe that we have to go back and make sure that our guidelines are consistent with the bylaw and that we haven't overstepped.
Yeah.
Just that.
Yeah.
And I think they absolutely are. Because when I reviewed all that stuff when I first started, it looked like it was definitely in meshed together.
We're going to take a very close look at it and be as respectful as we can to everybody.
Yeah, thank you. And Susan, we may ask you to come with us before the select board, since you're our historic preservation specialist.
Sure.
Right on board.
Happy to. And I think, I think this, I'm going to mention this article I sent to Meryl, which I'm going to send to all of you guys, which I have not done yet, sorry. That was prepared by Historic New England about preservation and the different levels of preservation, the different options towns and municipalities have to, and individuals have to preserve historic properties. And it's really quite clear. And it's also clear that if there's an historic commission in town, it has a demolition delay. That is part of its charter. So, so I'll send that to you guys and you can read it and review it as well. And which I think is kind of a good basis for trying to explain to the select persons exactly kind of what we are and how we work.
Exactly, Susan. I think explaining to the select board so they understand and that we're not creating things that are going to be onerous is really what it boils down to.
Right.
And I like the idea of potentially sharing your article, Susan, and your article, Gordon. Gordon also sent an article to the commission today regarding demolition delays, and they're both really informative and comprehensive. And I think it would be helpful just to educate them a little bit more about, again, what we're doing and why, and that it's within the norms of what is done by historical commissions. And we're actually more open-minded than a lot of historic commissions.
You were really open-minded tonight.
We really are. We really are. Yeah, but I mean, so I guess, so you sent this article to Meryl, or?
I sent it. It's from the National Trust for Historic Preservation. It was an article, and I had sent it when I sent all of the application materials for tonight's meeting.
Right. I'll read through that.
It was the last attachment to the second email, 2 of 2.
Right.
From the National Trust, and it talks about what constitutes demolition, what constitutes partial demolition, sort of how you define these things in various towns. Newton actually had a good example of it. So I think it's about, it's about explaining.
And I think there's, it's a delay. Like if people waited us out for 2 years, they could go ahead and do that. So
18 months only.
Yeah. So it's not us saying you can never do that and having any means to, enforce that. So,
right.
But I'll send that article to you also. You have it too. It's very helpful, I thought.
Yeah, I really appreciate both of you doing that, because it's helpful for us too, to be sure that we have the wording as we talk with the public more about what we're doing and why.
Yep.
Errol, I need to scoot in about 10 minutes. How are we doing?
Okay, we're going to make this quick. The last thing is about Form Bs in the historic plan. I think we've mentioned before that Lynn has a new contract. Has Lynn received the new contract and signed it, Jim?
She has indeed, yes.
Great.
She's received it and
Up and
endorsed it.
running.
Yes.
Okay. And Susan Baker has done a wonderful job of both organizing the Form Bs on the Google Drive, and then we've been doing some exploring, because we've discovered that we don't have all of the updated Form Bs on our Google Drive. And the Mass Historical Commission is, we understand from Lynn's mileage, 18 months behind in adding our updated Form Bs to their drive. So a lot of the work that's been done is not accessible to the public. And so that's one of our goals really going forward, is to try to find a way to get more of the updated Form Bs accessible to the public. And Susan and I did some work at the library this week on that, and Jim and I will be meeting to file some updated Form Bs that are in the library on Friday. And Susan is working on getting some, they're basically unedited Form Bs from Eric Dre, who was the last preservation specialist that were done in 2019. They're being moved from a Dropbox to Google Drive.
And you were gonna get in touch with him and see if you had that file somewhere that wasn't in the Dropbox that he could send, so that, because transferring from Dropbox to the Google Drive is an onerous process.
Oh, I didn't get that part. Okay, I'll do
Yeah,
that.
I'm sorry. So
Okay.
if we could get he
Okay.
could send us a file of
Okay,
those, just that I could then download into the Google Drive directly rather than have to transfer, it would be great.
okay,
It would save tons and tons of time. So,
okay.
so we have draft versions of the Form B will be on, for Eric's work, will be on the drive. And when Mass Historical sends out the final version, we can just update the drive with that and delete the draft. So, but at least we have something on record for those properties that have been done. So
Yeah, if something comes before us and look at the pictures and
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's a lot, and then there's also at some point the list that Merrill has, the inventory of the houses that have been done. We do need to go double check and make sure that those houses that have had a Form B done actually are on the drive. And if not, try and find them somehow.
Yeah, that's going to be challenging, because I think the way this was done previously was that the finished copies were sent by the historic preservation consultant directly to the Mass Historical Commission, and we were given paper copies and not digital copies. So I'm not sure if we can retrieve
Well,
that.
it should be on, it should be on Mass Historical, except for the most recent ones.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we can always download a copy from them and put it on our drive. Yeah, if we have to. That's something we can do. That's a long-term project.
Yeah, and I think long-term, I think at some point we need to just try to check about what we actually have on Macris, on the Mass Historical Commission site. But that's long-term. Okay, so that's it for that. Let's see, Jim, the minutes. Oh dear, I've been so involved in all these other things. I don't remember receiving them from the last meeting, but
Yes.
I'm sure you sent it out. I
Yes,
know
they were sent.
Okay.
I didn't receive any corrections, but.
Okay.
So
Go
one of
ahead.
my questions is who uploads the agendas and the minutes to the drive? Because we're trying to keep track of all those by date. And I mean, do you want me to? I'll do it, but I haven't done it yet.
Okay.
Because
We haven't historically done that. But I think you're right. It would make sense to do that. So
so one of the things that came out, I don't know if you remember this. So right now we have a file that's the minutes and a file that's the agendas. And there are some on there. So it's been done in scattered version.
okay.
And it's very hard for me to get an email that you've sent, like when you send out your emails for the agendas, you write it onto the email,
Mhm.
and that's very hard for me to transfer to the drive. Because then
If you send it as an attachment,
Yeah,
then
if
it
you
can be
send it as
opened and
attachment,
transferred.
Okay,
if you did it on a Word doc or something and then attach it to the notice of the meeting, that would be great.
okay. All right, and I'm assuming it might be good to have it be a PDF.
Yeah,
It can be a PDF or a doc, and I can change it to PDF
Okay.
if we need
but
to.
PDF is great if you can convert things to PDFs and then send them, so that it
Okay.
just can get down.
So what would be easier for me in terms of time would be, technically I don't have to send everybody the agenda. You can all check for the agenda, but I feel like it's helpful for people to get the agenda before it goes online with the town. So I'm wondering, does anybody have a difficulty with me sending all of you the agenda as an attachment rather than putting it in the body of the email? I've been doing that really just for the convenience of commission members, but if everybody can open attachments, I'll just do that to everybody. And then Susan will have her PDF and you can put it on the drive.
Yeah.
And then I'll send along
Objections?
the PDFs of each application and the related submissions so that you guys have a chance to review them ahead of time. I apologize for doing it only yesterday this time. I was having significant technical difficulties with a number of the applications that people sent, and I had to come to my office and have someone much smarter than I am at this come and convert everything, which Carlos did yesterday.
So
Only at that, Gordon.
one of the things so we don't save, I mean, I don't have those attachments from past times to save
Mhm.
to the drive with the applications. So I just have, maybe I do. Okay, I mean, that's fine. I'll figure it out.
I
We can
don't
talk
think
about it.
I don't think you have to have that for the drive because the paper copies are all going to be filed at the building department and that they'll have all of that information.
Okay, good.
But what would happen, Meryl, if someone asked a question, didn't we see this property 2 years ago? What did we approve? Would
Well,
we have
then-
any way of
then
looking
We would
back?
have
we
the
have the
minutes. We would have the
agenda
minutes. We could go
And the
back.
minutes, we would know that.
And we would be able to look back at all the emails to try to find what they originally submitted to us. It's
Well,
very difficult to do.
All right, so you're saying it would be good to have all the PDFs on the drive.
I think if we approve something, it's good that we have a record of the drawings related to what we're approving or disapproving.
Do
Right,
we
let
need
me-
to worry about limited space on the drive?
I don't know. I mean, I don't use my drive very much for things because I have a corporate drive where I work. So
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I think you could probably just buy additional storage if you need to.
Uh-huh. Okay.
That's, I don't know.
And how does someone, when we're all not on this commission anymore, and a property comes before us and somebody says we submitted, 4 years ago, and there has to be institutional memory, which is looking back at the drive and seeing what was submitted and approved, maybe.
I'm
Ideally, yeah.
convinced. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right, so we'll put, and you're sending those as PDFs and I'll send
Yeah.
the agendas as PDFs. And Jim, are you okay with sending the minutes to Susan as PDFs as well?
Sure, that's
For
fine.
past minutes, that would be great. Thank you. And then I'll just put them on the drive.
Yeah, it just saves a step for those of us who are like new.
So shall we vote to approve Jim's minutes from the last meeting?
I move that the minutes be approved.
Okay, I vote aye.
Aye, Jim?
I see them.
Luke,
Couldn't hear you so well, Luke, but I
I'm
assume
sure
that's
it's an
aye.
I, Gordon, I, Luke.
Okay. And is there anything about accounting that we need to know, Jim?
No, there isn't.
Okay, we kind of covered that. And so I think we're all set. And our next meeting is December 1st at 5 o'clock.
Great.
Excellent.
Great to see you all.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you all for your work. Thank you so much for putting all of this together, Gordon. That was a huge effort for today.
Thank you.
Hopefully it will get easier. Hopefully it will get easier with the new application.
Yes.
Yeah, I hope it does. And I'm thinking that when I get applications and they're not compliant with the new application requirements, I'm going to just bounce it back.
I think that's an excellent idea.
I'd say thank you, but read
I
the
agree.
application.
I think that's the way to do it. Yeah.
The trouble is,
I'll be a bureaucrat.
yeah.
Well, I mean,
Curmudgeonly bureaucrat. I just want to acknowledge that a former commission member passed away this past week in Wellfleet, and that was Jack Smith, who had been, along with Mac, leaders at St. James the Fisherman. And Jack was a wonderful man who I've known for years and years and years, and I was very sad that he didn't wake up one morning. And I just want to acknowledge that he had been on the commission. At the time, Olga Khan was serving on the commission, I think, and spoke to me about it.
his name was Jack, what was his name?
Smith.
Jack Smith.
Smith.
We were friends for 63 years.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mac, that's a big loss.
But
It
that's
really
not a
is.
bad way to go in your sleep.
It is.
You know?
Yeah.
It's true. If we could all choose, that certainly would be one of my top ways.
I have learned, though, that it's easier for the person that dies than the people who are not ready for it.
Yes,
Yeah, that's true.
that's true.
That
Yeah,
is true, Mac.
yeah.
Anyway,
Well, thank you, Gordon, for
Thanks for bringing
mentioning
that. Yeah.
Yeah, appreciate it. And thank you all for being here, and we will see you in December.
right, if not before.
Yes, maybe
Thanks.
even in person. It was so nice to see Susan in person this
It
week.
was great. It was great to meet you.
Take care, everybody. Bye.
You too.
Yes,
Take care.
Lovely.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.